Can you imagine a situation where HR directly improves the bottom line of an organisation, the profit, by up to 60%? Or in the public sector, HR directly improves productivity by 60%? Well, global research shows that maximising engagement can indeed achieve these results. And of course, engagement is one of the main subjects for HR. So welcome to this webinar on one of the 4 major HR priorities for the GCC, identified through our recent research study in association with the Arabian Society for Human Resource Management and kindly sponsored by Aramco. This first session focuses on engagement, but first I'll briefly introduce Oxford Strategic Consulting, give a short summary of the research, and then introduce the evidence-based recommendations on how you can maximise the engagement of your people and potentially be responsible for increasing productivity and profitability by on average 60%. So we at Oxford Strategic Consulting carry out advanced research and implementation in the areas of HR, leadership and resourcing across the GCC. Our clients represent all the major organisations in the public and private sectors of the GCC, and our research initiatives are recognised by senior government figures as well as industry leaders. We make a real and significant difference for all our clients, and we work closely with them to ensure that our advanced methods and processes have an impact long after the project is finished. So if you need a world-class review of HR, a highly effective leadership development programme, or help in finding key talent, including nationals, you may want to join our highly respected group of clients. We also run the Gulf Talent Advisory Board, whose fellows represent the top thought leaders in HR across the GCC. Fellowship is by invitation only, but GTAB is open to nominations from those who can add real value to the major HR debates and issues of the region. I'm only going to cover the research very briefly, but if you'd like a copy, then you can visit our website at www.oxfordstrategicconsulting.com and go to reports. We're also publishing the HR Transform Toolkit, which will be available in a few weeks following useful input from the GTAB Fellows and Ashram 2014 conference. So many leaders across the GCC and worldwide do not believe that business leaders recognise the value of HR. However, our research shows that in fact 8 out of 10 GCC business leaders believe that HR is crucially important. By this, of course, they mean the human resources, the human capital or the talent of their organisation. The opportunity for the HR function is that the business leaders also stated that effective human resource management of world-class standard would increase their profits by an average of 12% per annum, with some quoting a profit increase of over 100%. If we take only the listed companies in the GCC, that would represent overall a $14 billion increase in profits. So that's the good news. On the other hand, only a quarter of HR leaders themselves rated HR in the GCC as excellent. This is what is known as an opportunity gap, where demand and recognition of value is very high, but current performance in meeting that challenge is relatively low. As we saw in the last webinar, we can combine the HR priorities from business leaders with current HR performance in a grid, with capabilities shown top to bottom and priorities shown left to right. The activities that end up in the bottom right corner are those which the business believes are most important, but which are not being done well. The 4 priorities for improvement by HR in the GCC are therefore enhancing the engagement of employees, recruiting the right people to meet business needs, creating business-led HR strategy, and effective HR to support employees. For each of these priority areas, we have investigated why it's so important, why current models, largely based on Western practices of leadership and HR, aren't working, and how the priority areas can be improved to be beyond best practice. In all 4 areas, we've found new and innovative ideas to provide a new HRM for the new world economy. In this session, we'll focus on engagement, with some intriguing insights demonstrating major gaps in current best practice and huge opportunities for organisations to really improve the engagement of our people. Our research shows that most of what organisations do now is really a waste of time, but they could easily take a new approach which would significantly improve engagement. So first of all, why is engagement important? As you can see, it's consistently been proved to have a significant impact on all sorts of business and organisational results, including an average 57% increase in effort, profits increasing by 3 times, and 22% stock market performance improvement. So it really is one of the most important factors for organisational success. So is engagement better in developed economies, and is HR best practice actually practiced? The evidence says no. Engagement globally is low, and if anything, it's worse in the developed individualistic economies of the West. In addition, the epitome of best practice HR, the widely accepted business partner model defined by Ulrich and Brocklebank, has not in fact been widely implemented. And even where it has on the face of it been implemented, the business partner is most often simply an account manager for HR services, rather than a true strategic business partner as defined by Ulrich. So in order to try and increase engagement, we need to understand what it is and how it manifests itself in individuals and groups, as well as the timescales within which it operates. And we have to understand the main factors that cause it to be high or low. So here are a couple of fairly typical definitions of engagement. Are they helpful? Do they lead to specific action areas? We need to find a way of describing engagement that helps leaders, individuals and experts, such as HR practitioners, to actually make a difference. So for the sake of simplicity, let's describe engagement as enthusiasm. This immediately highlights a key conclusion of our research and the recommendations of this toolkit. Engagement or enthusiasm is actually individual. It may be helpful to assess the engagement of groups or whole organisations, but this is merely averaging out a whole lot of individuals. So if we want to change engagement, we need to look at individuals as well as groups of individuals. Secondly, engagement happens in real time, changing from day to day or even hour to hour. It may be helpful to look at engagement over, say, a year, but we're probably only taking a snapshot of the point at which an engagement survey happened to be completed. It's like taking your temperature once a year and trying to work out if you have a heart condition. So let's have an easy action-oriented definition. Engagement means enthused individuals today. According to all the research, one of the major causes of engagement is leadership. Leadership's a big topic in itself, but let's keep it simple. Think back to the worst boss or teacher you ever had. Have you thought of him or her? Okay, now make a list of all the things they did to you that you hated. And don't do them to others, ever. Simple. Now think back to the best boss you ever had. Have you thought of the person? Make a list of all the things they did to you that you loved. And yep, you guessed it, do them to others always. And you thought leadership was complicated. The second major cause of engagement, or enthused individuals today, is the individuals themselves. Now this presentation is being given in the crazy Atlantis Hotel in Dubai, where conference goers are invited to cuddle and kiss the dolphins. So why do people love to get close to dolphins? Is it a nervous fascination with a top carnivorous predator hunting in packs? No. Is it because of the scientific interest in a large aquatic mammal? No. Of course not. It's because the dolphin appears to be the happiest, wildly enthusiastic animal in the world. They seem to love everything and everyone they get involved with. If you could find a dolphin with IT skills, they'd be the most enthusiastic IT guy you could ever employ. If you could find a dolphin with financial skills, they'd be the most enthusiastic accountant ever. In contrast, let's consider the blobfish, officially the world's most miserable looking fish. The blobfish is in danger of extinction, and you can probably understand why. Not even another blobfish would enjoy the company of a blobfish. A blobfish in your office would radiate depression across the team. The world's most talented blobfish still looks like he finds everything and everyone deeply disappointing. Now let's suppose our dolphin and our blobfish go for an interview. They're both rejected for the job, and the letter just says more suitable candidates, which basically tells you nothing. Our dolphin, being an upbeat, optimistic person, explains this to himself in the following ways. I didn't want the job, the interviewer was rubbish, I had a cold, and so on. The way in which people explain negative and positive events is called their attribution style, and this is a well-researched, testable, and modifiable psychological trait. I should also mention that it's possible for an attribution style to be too positive, and we call this psychotic optimism, But generally, a slightly unrealistically positive attribution style turns out to be the most useful. Our blobfish, on the other hand, explains the rejection as "I'm no good, I'm too stupid, or I'm very unlucky," all of which may be true, but none of which help in being positive about future interviews or indeed about all sorts of future events. The good news for the blobfish is that his attribution style is not a deep, unchangeable psychological characteristic. It's developed through experiences and it can be modified through training. So if I were able to take your Mr. Blobfish on our attribution course for a few days, he would come back like this. So now we know that engagement or enthused individuals today is mainly caused by leadership and the individual themselves. The work environment or situation is maybe 20% on average, with the external situation, home life or the state of your favourite football team, as maybe 10%, and another 10% remaining a total mystery even to us. So why do best practice programs focus here? With annual surveys and interventions, such as new benefits, for example, changed for everybody. Shouldn't we see if we can create a major impact through improving leadership and self, the individual themselves? The lower process is what could be described as current best practice. It produces group-wide diagnostic plans and interventions. There's nothing wrong with this, and we're expert in these programs ourselves, but they're not enough. We shouldn't expect this on its own to have a major impact on enthused individuals today. Do I wake up every morning and think, wow, I'm going to really go for it today because of a new flexible benefit system? We need a different focus alongside, a focus on real-time, individual interventions. So how can we help individuals and their immediate leaders to understand and maximise their own and their team's enthusiasm, and ideally provide data for higher level analysis and action at group and corporate levels? Firstly, in terms of diagnosis, we can simply ask individuals. So this interview structure could be used to provide individual diagnosis. People say to me that we couldn't possibly interview all our people, and certainly not more than once a year. But if I ran a small shop with 6 staff, would I speak to them in as much detail much more frequently? Of course. And your organisation is actually made up of lots of small teams, each with a leader. So we could suggest the leader carries out these kind of interviews and acts as a result at team level whilst passing data up the line. Alternatively, of course, a third party like ourselves can carry out independent interviews using as much resource as required. That way, the leader ends up with issues raised by individuals, many of which are probably easy to solve, and only some of which will need higher level action. And the solutions are for those individuals. But even then, we're not really diagnosing and monitoring in real time. So how would this be possible? Oxford Strategic Consulting, in partnership with entails, are developing an app to allow teams and leaders to enthuse individuals today in real time. The key benefits of smartphone technology are that it is always with the person and it can help a person to do actions, not just learn about how to do actions. So for example, if the leader needs to have a difficult conversation, then the app can guide the process, provide the questions and any process requirements, and actually improve the effectiveness of that action. Given time, the app would be able to determine the best days or times to do certain tasks. Our research says that GCC nationals, and in fact many people worldwide, will not give accurate feedback on themselves or their leader, but they will give more accurate feedback on the team, as this is slightly more impersonal. So we don't ask how enthusiastic was the leader today, or how enthusiastic were you today, but just how enthusiastic was the team today. We can also use the app so that individuals can confidentially diagnose and work on their own attribution style, and we can incorporate any other assessment or help the organisation might lead. So given the use of the app, then the leader of several teams will be able to get an easy diagnosis, perhaps something like this, which shows that team 1 is fine, one person in team 4 is not enthused, but teams 6 and 7 may well need help. Similarly, for a team leader, they'll be able to see how enthusiasm has varied over a period of time and act accordingly. So the team was very unenthusiastic on Sunday, but very engaged on Thursday, whereas on Saturday several of them were missing, while the others were not particularly engaged. This is all very useful information for a team leader. So engagement means helping individuals to be enthusiastic in real time. We need to focus on leadership and individual engagement, ideally using this app. and to use group diagnosis and intervention as a valuable support for this individual real-time process. We need to build dolphins, not. So a thanks to the Arabian Society for Human Resource Management and the President for partnering in this research, and to Aramco for their support. Thank you especially for joining us in this presentation. Feel free to contact us for any further information or for help, and we look forward to seeing you again in our next session on effective resourcing of key talent. Thanks very much indeed.